Hey, it's Blade Daily coming at you with some bonus audio. You know, something I wanted to talk about that occurred to me recently. In 5 years of watching AEW, something I've rarely heard anyone from wrestling media talk about is that AEW is almost entirely unprecedented. And by that, I mean this. Tell me another wrestling promotion that was formed out of nothing, out of the air, became a national touring company with pay-per-view and cable television distribution immediately right out of the gate. Definitely not WCW. That was Ted Turner's continuation of Jim Crockett Promotions, which was a decades-old territory with a national following, just continued the television shows, everything as it was. Definitely not WWE, which was Vincent K. McMahon's continuation of his dad, Vincent J. McMahon's WWF, which was already the number one grossing wrestling territory in the country. Of course, Vince was the one who struck a deal to get national television and raided and undid the entire territory system and crushed any semblance of competition over a period of 25 years. But he did take over a territory that had existed for decades before that. ECW eventually got national television, but was never a national touring company. And they did have pay-per-view, but not from the jump. TNA was close. They started as a pay-per-view company. They eventually got national television, but they did spend a number of years running weekly pay-per-views before that materialized. They did tour nationally and internationally, but again, that took years and it only lasted a short time. No, AEW is the first American wrestling promotion to begin as a national touring brand with cable and pay-per-view distribution from day one. A roster with global talent that immediately upended the status quo in pro wrestling. It ended a practical, if not literal, monopoly held by WWE and was engineered through the machinations of a billionaire fan. And I think that's why so many have been quick to despise Tony Khan and AEW. Many old heads of the days gone by like Jim Cornette or formerly successful, pathetic opportunists, desperate for clickbait money like Eric Bischoff and Vince Russo, hate that a guy with so much money could just buy his way in. They wanted him to just be a money mark so bad that went out of business in a year or two so that they could say they told you so. Cornette said they'd be out of business in 6 months. Whoops. And I think Tony Khan in a lot of ways is an avatar for what a lot of fans dream of being. He's wealthy enough to buy the best talent available. He had enough connections to wrangle the TV and pay-per-view stuff right out of the gate, and then able to book however he sees fit because of his family's wealth. And I'm not dumb. Him essentially being a billionaire's son makes that story about him buying wrestlers like toys seem like a believable fantasy. It seems like a lot of people think he's had it easy, and let's be real, like those connections, that family wealth, did make it easier. But what AEW is took an incredible and almost inhuman amount of work and dedication to create. The wrestling paradigm could only have been shifted by someone with the resources of someone like Tony Khan. That's just the truth. And the really inconvenient truth is that just about everyone who works or has worked for Tony Khan says he's treated them very well. It's not debatable that AEW's existence has raised the pay for wrestlers industry-wide. AEW wrestlers take time off when their kids are born, you know what I mean? Or they have something going on in their family. They can take time away from TV in ways that's never really been possible in wrestling before. And Tony's like a mark for his own talent. He treats them with reverence. Yes, he's been criticized for that, but he also treats them like human beings. And I find that really crazy because many of the same people who professed to despise Vince McMahon prior to 2019 seem to almost despise Tony Khan for not being more like Vince McMahon. And that's, I guess, what my point is here. The truth that really jumps out at me, at least, is that wrestling creators and wrestling fans really struggle to wrap their heads around new ways of doing things. People will point to AEW's attendance and say, something must be done. But the truth is that AEW is a television product first. That's how they get paid. The gates are not their bread and butter. It's important to have a big enough crowd to look good on television, nothing more. I'm sure they'd like to do better than that, of course, but reality is reality. When AEW doesn't have normally low rating for a Dynamite, there's like a week's worth of constant speculation about what it means, even though WWE and NXT's ratings fluctuate as well. NXT has been growing their audience to where a lot of people say, they're almost drawing like a Dynamite-esque rating. But there's been several weeks lately where they drew much lower ratings, and I didn't see shit about that. Because people know WWE is going to continue and they know NXT is going to continue regardless of their ratings. There's been entire episodes of podcasts of people speculating about what AEW's costs are and estimations of their talent budget. Even though AEW is a privately held company and no one is even totally clear if Tony Khan is the only owner or not. I guess my point is this. By being unprecedented, AEW broke a lot of brains. By continuing to stay in business, AEW's made a lot of people historically viewed as experts look like fucking morons. Tony Khan continuing to run a successful promotion without any prior experience in the wrestling business kind of essentially cucked a lot of old heads who can't find work in the business anymore. And now they have to make their living shitting on him. But make no mistake, AEW's success is unprecedented. Even if the product isn't as hot as it was, even if WWE is on fire right now, AEW, it ain't going anywhere.